Welcome to the Big Idea podcast, where we focus on food. Today we're going to be talking to Arnuad Delacour from the Very Food Company based in France. They're doing some amazing things in the building blocks of cooking, working with chefs, working with restaurants, and bringing to them ingredients and technologies that allow us to make amazing plant-based dishes of all kinds. So let's get into the conversation with Arnuad, and I'm Andrew Ive, the founder of Big Idea Ventures, your host for today. Let's get into the conversation. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much. Arnuad, welcome to the Big Idea podcast, where we're focused on food. How are you today, sir?
Very good, thank you. Very excited about this.
Me too. I've been excited about this all day. What's going on? Tell me what you guys are doing, the company name, and then let's get into a conversation.
Yes, great. So yeah, thanks again for the invitation. We are the Very Food Co. At Very, we replace eggs and dairy in culinary applications, so in cooking and baking if you want. So really focus on replacing the basic building blocks of cooking and baking in Western cooking with eggs and dairy that are the foundations. We're moving. I think quite fast, not as fast as I would like to, but we're moving, and I now have the chance also to have someone with me, Oscar, my co-founder, very strong scientific profile, and it brings a lot in the team.
So you went through that really fast. For people listening, you've got a wonderful accent, but when you speak quickly, I'm not sure everyone caught all of that. So you're called the Very, Very Food Company?
That's right. Very Food Co. Yes.
Very Food Co. And you guys are focusing, and I'm just summarizing, on the building blocks of the cooking experience in Western cooking. So in other words, the dairy, the cream, the milk, the eggs, those sorts of things that you use to create the amazing dishes in your part of the world and the rest of Europe, etc., Europe and North America.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm going to force myself to slow it down, and but that was exactly this. So and you know the company already, but the idea, if you want, is to say the world is moving to plant-based, or we have to somehow accompany or force a change to something more plant-based. And for that to happen, we need to start from the beginning. And the beginning is cooking, because before people eat something, they have to cook it, whether it's at home or at the restaurant. And that's where the idea comes from, that if we want to really make the change, we need to start from cooking and from these basic building blocks.
So how are the chefs out there that you've engaged with responding to a suggestion or the need to move from a traditional egg, cream, milk approach to being told that there's actually new ways of accomplishing the same things? Are they incredulous? Do they believe? Do they try? Do they experiment? Or is it all over the map in terms of the response from the chefs and the cooks out there?
I would say pastry chefs in general are a lot more open, because already in the cooking, in the style, they use a lot more somehow physics and chemistry. So they know that at the end, cooking is a lot about putting the right elements together at the right pH, at the right temperature. So they understand a lot what we're doing. And I would say there is quite a bit of engagement from the food service industry in that regard. When it comes to cooking, this is more difficult in France, because I think they see that as a threat to their identity.
When you say they see it as a threat.
Yeah, chefs, like traditional chefs, may see this change as a threat to their identity. They were trained in classical French cuisine with a lot of butter, a lot of eggs, and they just don't see it otherwise. Even after we tell them we can do great things, it's better for the environment. By the way, your customers are asking for it. So I would say already there is a bit of a unbalance between cooking chefs and pastry chefs, and we see a lot more adoption in pastry applications, and that's where we're starting and focusing a lot now.
And is that pastry chefs who are making pastry-based or pastry dishes, etc., in restaurants, or are you sort of talking to companies that are making pastries in larger quantities and bringing it to, retail or bakeries or related? How are you seeing that pastry traction, as it were?
Yeah, so we really focus on the cooking and baking user need. So we want to be selling at the beginning to people who use the product and transform this product into a final product. In that regard, we work a lot with, we would like to work, but we've started discussing with big food service companies that have the needs of this, and also bakeries. You've come to France, you probably had one or two croissants or pain au chocolat. So
never happened.
So you know what I'm talking about when it comes to, like, to give you an idea, like a standard bakery in Paris would use 50 kilos to 100 kilos of butter per week in order to make this puff pastry, this viennoiserie. And so we're talking to them a lot as well, because they use the product, they transform it into something else. So I would say we talk both with food service and with bakeries, traditional bakeries. We don't talk too much yet with the food industry because there are a lot of players out there already, and we think that the bigger need at the moment is on this food application, making a product transform into a final plant-based product. I don't know if I explained that well, but happy to tell you a bit more about that.
So you picked probably the easiest country in the world to encourage them to move away from their traditional methods of creating croissants, baguettes, bread, etc. I mean, France is known for its kind of, I'm being sarcastic, obviously.
I know, I see that.
Well, I mean, France, let's face it, France has created amazing products, and they are traditional products. How are you finding the reception of? And you've picked one of the most challenging, I think, countries to make this change in. Like if you, for example, if you brought your technologies, your amazing products to the United States, I'm sure the bakery community would be open to try it, because they don't have that heritage of producing these croissants and these pain au chocolat and baguettes, etc. Every day, and it's not a central part of the culture, the food culture, that is. France is probably the opposite. How are you finding the reception, and how are you breaking the barriers of belief and understanding that you can accomplish the same great taste, texture, flakiness, etc., using more sustainable ingredients?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to the taste and to the functional application. I think a lot of chefs we talk to at the beginning, they say, well, it's not possible anyway. And then, we show them the matrices we've developed, so the products, and they try it. Or even sometimes we actually cook for them. So we show them what they could be doing with our ingredients. And it's so close and sometimes so undistinguishable from the dairy and egg-based products that then the conversation change. And I think food is a lot about this. You can have the best arguments in the world, especially with chefs or with food professionals. You are going to convince them with the taste of the product and the functionality of it. And that's what we're doing. We put a lot of focus actually having this iteration cycle between us, the food labs, and chefs, so that we develop or we co-develop with them. And so ideally, at the end, we have a product getting out of our lines that would be matching what they actually need. But I agree with you, like France is probably the most difficult, but I think it's also, and you see it in terms of adoption to plant-based like products. If you compare the penetration rate of plant-based milk in France compared to the US or compared to Switzerland or other countries in Europe, it's very low, even if it's catching up. But I think it's exactly this. I think in France, the change has to come from the top, and the top, the food influencers, they are the chefs, they are the ones cooking, and this is the people we need to make our ambassadors, not only my brand, but like the plant-based or alternative protein community. We're not going to make anything in France, I think, especially without this leading authority figure when it comes to food, that are professional chefs.
One of the things that surprised me about France is 3-4 years ago, you go there and you look for plant-based restaurants in Paris, for example, even in Paris, which is forward thinking for sure. And there were 5, 6, 7 plant-based restaurants, dedicated restaurants. Now, just last summer, I wouldn't say there are thousands, but there are a lot more. It's been over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a change for sure in the culinary landscape from a plant-based perspective. You mentioned consumers are asking for the change. You're seeing that across France and Europe, that consumers are wanting more sustainable, non-animal based ingredients and products?
Yes, and I mean, even more so, I think what I see on the market is more and more people not, I think, caring less and less whether it's from an animal, or let's say, let me rephrase this. If it's as good and if it comes from plants instead of animal, they're happy to try it, and they would buy it again. The repeat purchase would happen if the product is good enough. And you have less this tendency. When I started to work on the project 2-3 years ago now, there was really this belief that vegan was not good. And when I was talking to friends, some of them vegan, they told me it's unbelievable. But my friends, when I bring food, they don't want to try it because it's labeled as vegan, and vegan has this wrong appeal to other consumers. I think the industry has done a lot in the past 3-4 years. I think we didn't have all those brands, consumer-facing brands, 3 or 4 years ago, and they're changing things fast. So I think we need both. We definitely need restaurants, as you said, more and more restaurants opening, and also more and more brands that are made in Europe and developed and distributed in Europe for consumers to change. But I think what is lagging behind in this whole thing is food service. And so I see a bit like you, a big increase, and then people go to the restaurant, whether they're vegan or flexitarian, and they want to find the same offer as they find now in the supermarket. And as you say, they didn't find that 4 years ago, and they can still not find it. Also because in the middle, COVID happened, and so COVID was not a great time of innovation for chefs. They're like restaurants were just trying to survive for the past 2 years. So I think it has also widened the gap between the adoption of plant-based into B2C retail stores and the basically non-adoption of this into food service yet. But I think it's also changing fast.
So when I started in food, I was a very traditional eater. I was brought up in an English household, and every plate had an animal protein, a pork chop or a sausage or a something, a potato probably in one form or another, and a vegetable. Very sort of standard approach to eating. And it was very difficult to change, even though I was seeing what was happening around me, to kind of consider a plant-based lifestyle. But I think you, me, others in this space are wanting to bring great food to people who are not vegan, who are not vegetarian, who are the traditional eaters, and show them that they can have the tastes and the textures and the flavors that they've been brought up with as a strong part of their culture, in a way that's more sustainable, in a way that doesn't include an animal protein or an animal fat or an animal, derivative of some kind. How do we take the risk out of food and new foods in this category for rest? Or actually, let me ask a more specific question. How does the Very Food Co. take the risk out of this for food producers, restaurants, food service, and ultimately the consumer? Does it come back to the kind of raw ingredients, the core ingredients, and the building blocks, as you discussed it in the beginning, as the key components of being able to deliver the same exact experience and product for the consumer at the end?
Yes, I mean, totally. I think when you cook, I mean, I have a bit of a little story around this project, but basically, without being going too much into the details, 2 or 3 years ago, I started to go, really to be really concerned about the environment, and I started getting really close to the vegan movement. And I go to a restaurant with a friend at the time. I'm not vegan. I'm mostly a vegetarian. And we go to like a normal restaurant, and she ends up having a salad and French fries. I'm like, why are you not having something else? And she goes like, well, I can't, because there is nothing else for me there. And I thought, it's exactly this. We need to include her in the conversation, as much as we need to include me, who doesn't necessarily need to eat meat at every meal, as much as we want to include maybe heavy meat eaters into this switch. And that was a bit that was also a bit of a start of the project for me, to think we can't go only with very innovative products or products that a bit Frankenstein-y products that people never heard of. We need to go with the basics, because we need people to believe and to see that the childhood memories, what they were cooking, what their grandmother was cooking, they can find in the supermarket, they can find at the restaurants. And chefs are the same. When I started this conversation with chefs, I was asking them, why don't you serve plant-based burgers? And they were telling me, because I don't serve burgers to start with, or what I don't need to start I don't want to serve plant-based burgers. I need to be able to express my creativity, but with plant-based products, so that I can offer to my customers the same experience, what they're looking for when they're coming to my restaurant. So I think it's exactly this, is we need to bridge this gap between tradition that is heavily based on meat and dairy and eggs, on animal products, and bridge this gap and make plant-based the new normal. And I think if you look at the IPCC report, and we just don't have a choice. We need to make this happen. It's my life mission. It's your life mission as well. We need to accelerate this change and this switch to plant-based.
So in terms of getting back to the product again, in terms of the building blocks, the equivalent to, or the plant-based equivalent to egg, butter, cream, etc., the building blocks of traditional cooking for the Western palate. How do you do it? How do you create products which perform like, and I don't mean this this is the wrong expression, but like the real thing, or the traditional ingredients? How do you do it, and can you do it? Have you achieved it? Can you?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Let's talk about it.
First, I appreciate that you refrain from calling us like substitutes, or because that's exactly this. We're trying to perform as well as other ingredients that are from the animal kingdom, which is from the plant kingdom. how do we do it? At the beginning, I had no idea, to be honest. I had this idea that the world needs a change, and then things got into, like, I got in touch with a lot of people trying to understand the technology and the technology of plants and plant formulation. And then quite quickly, and I think we discussed that last year in December, it was quite obvious that I was missing, some science in the team and the product development. So we can really not only make products, but also make our products technology defensible. And all this to say that what I did is I contacted the best plant-based experts in Europe, people like Dr. Fischer in ETH Zurich or Mark Anton at INRAE, and I said, I have no idea how to do it, but you probably know because I've been reading your papers for the past 2 years. I need some help. Can you help me? And that's how I got in touch with my co-founder, and that was a step change into how we develop the products. Before I was really more ingredient based, so I would do, like, our first product was heavily based on chickpea, and then Oscar came and said, no, we need to go one level down. We need to look at the molecular properties of each ingredient, so that we formulate and we go get into each of these ingredients only what we need, only what we want for the products. So that's the first thing we have. We rely on more than 20 years of plant technology with Oscar, and that's how we do it. And to give you an example of the products we do, so I was talking a lot about plant-based butter. And usually when I say we make a plant-based butter, people go like, well, it's only a margarine at the end. And I say, no, absolutely not. It's not a margarine, because if you look at, if you find margarine on the market, they were developed for spreads. They're only 60% fat, and they don't allow puff pastry applications. And that was one of the first things that our chefs, like the people we talked to, asked us. They said, we're okay to get a plant-based butter, but it needs to perform as well, especially for these puff pastry applications that are the basics of French pastry. And so we did a lot of research for the past year, and now we have products that are stable, and the next step now will be to scale it up at industrial scale for market launch in 2023. So a long answer to the question, but we have technology, we rely on science, and we're happy now to prove that, yeah, actually we have our products featured at the next Big ID tasting in June. So happy to get you try it at that time.
As you're talking, I'm sort of having light bulb moments, as we would say over here. In other words, I'm sort of realizing things as you're speaking. I've never really thought about making a croissant or making a bread or a puff pastry before. I've done it, but I've never really thought about it. Every ingredient has a purpose. And not only does each individual ingredients have a purpose, but if you bring them together, they work together. So if you sort of unpack what a traditional animal-based egg does as an ingredient in a product, whether that's a croissant or whatever, if you can deliver the same function and performance using a plant-based ingredient, then you don't need the egg. And it's traditional to use the egg because it was the only thing we had to be able to provide that purpose, to be able to fulfill that purpose. And I'd never really thought about it in those terms. I appreciate you kind of helping me understand that.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback on that, I like you saying this because when we talk to chefs, food service, I can't really name it, so I have to say food service groups. But when we talk to them, they say, look, your market is not plant-based egg and dairy because this doesn't exist in food service. This is butter, this is the egg, this is the usage. And these markets are huge, and this is what we're going after. Because if you think of it, we're going at, as you said, at the functionality of each of the ingredients. And if we can show that they work well in the mattress, and we can realize a great cake, and that the chef is not losing any of his identity, I think it's very important to say, to promise, then we're really getting into a product that can replace eggs and dairy. Like, really, eggs and dairy is heavily subsidized by the European Union, so it's very hard to match in terms of cost. But we're getting really close, and we will get much closer with scale. And then it's just a matter of, I think the switch can happen actually quite quickly, especially now. You see, I don't know if you know, but butter, for example, has increased price by 50% in the next 2 months. Other plant fats as well have increased a lot. But I think it's interesting to see, with all the issues we have on the global market, global commodity market, will the change actually happen faster? Because it will be much harder for traditional dairy, traditional eggs to compete on price if prices go up like that. I think we still the plant-based industry still has a long way to go when it comes to scale and getting economies of scale on volume. Well, actually, animal is a bit, that's it, like that. They are the maximum volume capacity, and they can't really improve on that front. So, just to say, I totally agree, and this is like the market and our use case is not a small part. It's actually the whole thing, because, yeah.
So one of the things that we've been getting feedback around as far as plant-based ingredients and products are concerned is one of the ingredient list: simplicity, cleanliness, having a small number of ingredients that are recognizable by the average grandmother. How does, if Very is about having those fundamental building blocks as an ingredient within a dish or within a product like a croissant or a puff pastry, etc., how do you figure out what should be in the ingredient list of your products? How are you sort of ensuring that sort of simplicity?
Well, we start with, we have a bit of a guideline that is no GMO, no soy, no palm, and as little additives as possible. When we started that, we wanted to have zero additive. It's not possible to avoid them completely, because you have additives that are completely needed in order to make the product either functional or having a better shelf life. But we try either to reduce it or to use additives that are as natural as possible. And we know that everybody is looking at the list of ingredients. So if we come with something extremely functional and it contains a palm and it contains 10 additives, we're not going to sell any. So it's part of the development at core. And I think it's really, it was part of the first development stage. It's part of that development cycle again. I think the difficulty we have is on sourcing all the ingredients we're getting. We're getting extremely picky about the ingredients we need and the functionality that we're getting in each, because we are going to work. We work with a certain type of chickpea or pea, so that because it has this special property that we're looking for. And then if we have an issue on global markets with that type, then we end up having to replace, and we don't necessarily have yet the possibility to replace that fast. And so I think, even when you have finished a product that is as clean as possible, there is still this issue that the base ingredients that we need are really hard to source, because we can't use any ingredient. That would be too easy. We work really hand in hand with farmers and ingredient suppliers to get us to the quality we need and to get our formulation working, and also so that we can avoid or minimize the use of additives.
Perfect. I didn't realize you did that. That's actually pretty exciting that you're working with the farmers and so on to make sure that there's a consistent quality. I just imagined you went to a big producer of different ingredients and bought them in large quantities. Nothing so easy as that. Let's talk about bringing your Very Food Co. company, Very Food Co. ingredients to market. Is the strategy to get sort of the chefs who are the thought leaders in different groups first, so that they can wave a flag and sort of tell the rest of the industry and the rest of the community that this is not only possible but desirable, and from there go into the larger quantities, the larger food service executions, that's where you're providing it at large scale? Is it that sort of thought leader first, large scale second, or have you got a different approach to this?
It's very similar, but I would say instead of waiting for the thought leader to create a market and us coming afterwards, we're doing both in parallel. So really going after the image drivers that don't make really much quantity. And we know we probably need to spend more time with them to convince, and probably need to sign a few leading chefs, leading figures, whether vegan chefs or traditional chefs, in our communication. And this is one thing we do, or we will be doing closer to launch. And then the volume drivers, it's interesting because when we talk to them, they're kind of waiting for the products, and so it's like basically scale it up, because when I start ordering from you, I will need these 500 kilos per week, 1 ton per month, or more. And so we need to scale up for this food service really, really, really fast. It's not going to generate much word of mouth. It's not going to generate much image, but this is what's going to show the rest of this is what's going to make our first revenue. And we know that there is demand right now, so we need to go there as fast as possible.
Perfect. So what can we do? What can people listening do to help? Is it only you're in France now for sure? When we met originally, I think you were in Switzerland. Are you still in Switzerland?
Yes. The family is in Switzerland, and I spent a lot of my time in Paris, obviously, where the company is based. So I still commute quite a bit. But
the market that you're focused on right now is France?
Yes. We started out of Switzerland because that's where I was based. And France makes a lot of sense for so many, like the market is much bigger. I'm French. I have more networks there as well. So yeah, that's how we did it. And also our production partners and our labs, and Oscar, my co-founder, is in France. So that's why we did it that way. But what can people do listening to the podcast? I think we're going fast. We aim at launching in January 2023. If people want to reach out, give me ideas, they can always connect through LinkedIn or send me an email at ari@theveryfood.co.
Was that Harry or Henry?
Ari, A-R-I.
A-I-R.
A-R-I, Ari. Did I say this? I'll write it down on the chat.
No, you can't write it down in the chat because people are listening to this. Ari, A-R-I. So Ari at
theveryfood.co.
theveryfood.co. And so, by the way, this is going to be sitting out onto the etherweb, where the etherweb for many decades. So be prepared to get emails for the rest of your life because of this.
It's okay. I'm prepared. I'm committed to the mission, so I'm probably here for the next few years anyway.
Perfect. So where can people find your product right now? Are there certain restaurants or certain places that you're able to talk about, or is it very much you need to kind of be under the radar for a little bit?
We are under the radar. They can probably try our products in some restaurants without knowing that they're trying it, or in some bakeries. So that's a start. And one thing that is very difficult, that is a major question in food industry, is the scale up. And as I say, when we talk to food service and to big companies, they want us to be already able to provide huge volume. And so what we're doing now in the next 6 months is really prepare for an official launch that we will do in January 2023 in Lyon. There is this professional fair called CIRA, and this is where we will launch our products. And from that on, we will be commercially available in food service first. We don't say we'll never do B2C, but we just need to focus at the beginning. And as we want to be the cooking and baking brand for plant-based, we need to start in B2B.
How tough has it been to find a partner that will help you scale the ingredients, etc.? Because I'm aware that you've spent a lot of time, like many months, many years maybe, on developing the products and the core, as you call them, foundation blocks of cooking. How tough has it been to find somebody or a company that can take that recipe, that know-how, and create the product at scale?
I'm not going to lie to you. It's extremely difficult, especially when we have so many constraints. One of them is that we want to be made in France, at least at the beginning, because it resonates very well with the chef community in France. It's very difficult. So what we do is that, depending on the volume, we have different like third-party partners, and it's clearly different types of discussions you have when you produce a few products for sampling, as we do today, almost out of the lab, and when you go with full-scale production. And yeah, this is probably the hardest. We're still in discussion, by the way, with a few people. So that's probably how people can help us if they have production lines and production capabilities, and they think they can help us scale the products. We're more than happy to receive an email about that right now. Not in 10 years. Probably we'll have figured it out in 10 years. But yeah, that's something we're also figuring out now, so that we're ready for the launch.
So in terms of where people can reach out to you, engage with you, talk to you, give you lots of money, lots of suggestions, etc. It's theveryfood.co.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn, you said.
And
is that via your name? So Arnuad Delacour.
That's right. And there is also a company, Very Food Company. So without the Very Food Company, and that should be us as well. And you can follow us there.
So they'll be able to get your contact details for LinkedIn, etc., via your website.
Yes, there is everything there.
Perfect. Okay, so if anyone's listening, I hope they are. I hope more than my grandmother is listening. Please, if you are interested in what the Very Food Co. is doing in terms of building the foundation blocks of cooking and great cuisine, especially from a French cuisine perspective. Actually, no, you guys, your products can go across, as you say,
many cuisines. Yeah.
They're the building blocks of food in the Western culture, and I'm sure Asian folks are using eggs and milk and cream and things too.
Eggs a lot, yeah.
yeah. I'm getting myself into a big hole here. Okay, so if anyone is interested in this space, whether it's as a potential investor or if you're interested in the mission as a potential employee, or if you're a chef and you're interested in just what Arnaud is doing at the Very Food Co., please do reach out to him. That's about it, Arnaud. Thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. That was a great experience. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, I'm going to press pause. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming along to our podcast today. Great to have you. So again, this was Andrew Ive, founder of Big Idea Ventures. We're focused on working with the world's best entrepreneurs, scientists, and engineers to make the world a better place. So today was Arnuad Delacour from the Very Food Company, based in France, doing some amazing things. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any questions, please do follow up with Arnaud or myself. We have our website at Big Idea Ventures, where you can find out more about us. That's it. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Come see us next week. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.